What's up, gamers? Papa Jumpluff here behind the mic today. Got blue versus blue sleeves on the camera. We're looking at Berried Wings versus Iron Hogs today. Flipping the cards over, we've got the classic WotC-20 start of Cleffa versus Cleffa. Talking about some of the cards on the bench here, we've got a movie promo Mewtwo card, 70 HP. Pretty good for a basic. There's a single psychic for energy absorption, which will be able to take 2 energy cards from the discard pile and attach them to the Mewtwo. It's Cyburn for psychic colorless, dealing 40. Got an attach of the recycle energy onto the Cleffa, and we're flipping for an Eek. Shuffling the hand in and drawing a fresh 7 over to the Iron Hogs player with a quick rainbow energy attached to their Cleffa. 10 damage onto the Cleffa, and using a Gust to put the Crystal Lugia into the active slot. A pretty tough spot for that card to be in. It has a high retreat cost of 3 colorless, so it's going to be tough to get out of there without using a Warp Energy, but we do have a fresh 7 on the horizon. So anyway, Lugia has 80 HP. It's got a first attack of Psychic for a Psychic and a Fire attach. By the way, this is a Crystal type Pokemon, so whenever you attach a basic energy to the Pokemon, it will become the same type as that basic energy until the end of the turn. But Psychic will deal 10 damage times the number of energy cards attached to the defending Pokemon. Then the second attack is Steam Blast. That is a water, a fire, and a colorless for a 50 damage attack. And then the additional cost of discarding a energy card attached to Lugia in order to deal the damage. Could be a really good attack. You just need to be able to make sure that you're attaching a strategic basic energy to try and hit your opponent for weakness there. Additionally, this deck contains recycle energies, so you're able to just repeat doing 50 damage over and over by using a recycle energy to fulfill the colorless cost in that attack. We've got a copycat coming down. Seeing as how the Iron Hogs player eked during their last turn, will be able to draw a fresh 7 cards here. Before that, though, we had a fire attach onto the Crystal Lugia. We're drawing the 7 cards there. Let's see what we get. It looks like Item Finder, a Water, a Fire, another Cleffa, an Aerodactyl, a Psychic Energy, and an Ammonite. So nothing too great there. I think we were looking for a Warp Energy to try and get that Lugia out of the active slot, or at least set up for a next turn. Back over to the Iron Hogs player. Got a Pokemon Fan Club that comes down and brings out a Pineco. We're able to search out a second Pokemon and put it on the bench too. So let's see what we come out with here. Pineco is a oh yeah, there's a second Pineco. So it's a 40 HP basic Pokemon. Can use Tackle for 2 colorless energy, dealing 20 damage, and has a very high retreat cost for a basic Pokemon with only 40 HP of 2 colorless. Let's see what else comes out of this turn. Possibly another Eek. It's like both players are just trying to do the best they can to get set up here. Got a Water Energy coming down onto the Pineco. And an Eek. Back over to the Berried Wings player. See if we can sneak a peek at what they drew. Yep, it was a Warp Energy. Rip. Nice off the top. Able to put Cleffa back into the active slot. And it looks like we're going to Item Finder here. The only target being the Copycat. We're discarding Ammonite and Cleffa, likely because we're putting Ammonite into the discard pile. that might come up later in the match. There's a stadium that helps with bringing Pokemon that evolve from Mysterious Fossil back to the bench. Still resolving this copycat here. Let's see what 7 we come out with. We have already committed the energy this turn, so we could possibly see some more useful trainers come out. Possibly some more basic Pokemon to be able to fill the bench. It looks like we've got a Rainbow, Oak. Oh, we're going to hide the hand. All right, Fossil Egg. Fossil Egg is a trainer. You flip a coin. If heads, you get to search your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from Mysterious Fossil and put it directly onto the bench, treating it as a basic. However, we did flip tails here. Let's see, we can take a good look at the hand. I see Cleffa, Aerodactyl, Town Volunteers. Oh, wow, and we've got an aggressive Professor Oak here. Discarding Rainbow, Double Colorless Energy, Town Volunteers, Aerodactyl, and Cleffa. Probably looking to try and find a way to get Aerodactyl down as soon as possible. Staring at the 2 Pineco across the table and the threat of... there we go, another Fossil Egg. And this time it is heads. So, yeah, looking at the Iron Hogs player that has 2 Pineco on the bench with the potential to possibly just slam down 2 Fortress real quick. So, grabbing the Aerodactyl out of the deck, straight to the bench, trying to cut off the Iron Hogs player and hopefully disable them from being able to play any Fortress that they draw. Also notably cutting them off from getting into Piloswine. Lugia to the bench here. Neo Revelation Lugia, 90 HP. Arrow Wing for 40 for 4 colorless pips in the energy cost. And we've got a Tails on the Eek. But I had mentioned Piloswine on the Iron Hog side. We know Iron Hogs plays Swinub and Piloswine. Gonna quickly gust up the Aerodactyl into the active slot, posing a big threat. The Aerodactyl looks pretty fragile in the face of those Pinecos. Pineco presenting the weakness of Aerodactyl in the form of grass. So Aerodactyl, I didn't mention it before, but it stifles the ability of the opponent to evolve their Pokemon because of Pokemon Power Ancient Wind. It says evolution cards cannot be played any longer unless Aerodactyl is affected by a special condition. So we've got the Tackle from the Pineco dealing 40 damage to the Aerodactyl. Over to the Berried Wings player, we've got a Healing Field coming down. Unfortunately, that's not enough to save the Aerodactyl, even on a heads, because even if we healed the 20, we would be still only left with 40 HP remaining, and the Pineco would be able to make short work of that. Got a Psychic Energy coming down onto the Mewtwo here. Going to roll for the Healing Field anyway, and it's Tails. Not that it really mattered that much. Gusting up the Pineco that only has 1 energy. Maybe a last-ditch effort. I mean, there's a small possibility that he doesn't have another energy in hand, but back over to the Iron Hogs player. Doing a big thank here. For those that don't know, Healing Field is able to be used by both players. You flip a coin. If heads, it will heal 20 damage off of your active Pokemon. So here we go with a Rainbow Energy attach onto the Pineco. So 10 damage onto the Pineco. We already flipped for Healing Field. We kind of did that in reverse order. So the Pineco flipped Tails, so their 10 damage will stick. It is, however, able to knock out the Aerodactyl here, and we did buy a turn by using that gust of wind to push out the Pineco with only the 1 energy because it needed to attack in order to be able to get the Aerodactyl out of there. I mean, no, never mind. That would have happened either way. Either way, the Aerodactyl bought 1 turn of no Fortress. We're back over to the Berried Wings player. He pushes the Cleffa up into the active slot. A Rainbow Energy onto the Lugia, the Crystal Lugia, 10 damage onto it. And using Cleffa to Eek.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I was like, what's your saying going? I will Eek. Sounds good.
With that Eek, we're back over to the Iron Hogs player.
Somebody have a weakness? Psychic? Yep. Psychic.
And it does not change.
Sounds good. Healing field?
Flip for Healing Field. It rolls heads this time, so 10 damage comes off the Pineco. And yep, we're right into the Fortress. Fortress having a Pokemon Power Spikes, so if the Berried Wings player sends out a new active Pokemon, it will take 10 damage for each instance of that Pokemon Power. Also, it has Rapid Spin, which will deal 30 damage and then force both players to switch.
What's ER the Rainbow?
Energy removal on the Rainbow, on the Lugia. Another water comes down on the Fortress. Now able to use that Rapid Spin attack. Roll for Rapid Spin, flips tails. Back over to the Berried Wings player. Hard to see what's in that hand. There's a Buried Fossil. I see a Pokemon Fan Club, a Fire Energy, I think an Ammonite from Neo Discovery. Possibly setting up for next turn with that Buried Fossil. Got a Goldberry onto the Crystal Lugia here. Goldberry onto the Psychic Lugia there. Going with a Pokemon Fan Club. Only 1 space left on the bench. Not sure what we're going to find here. Okay. It's the WotC promo Mew. For 1 Psychic Energy, it's able to, I think it's Psychic is the name of the attack. But it's the same thing. It's deal 10 damage times the number of energy cards attached to the defending Pokemon. Oaking away 3 cards to draw a fresh 7. The other attack on that Mew is De-Evolution Beam, which is pretty strong with an Aerodactyl in play. Right now there's currently no Aerodactyl in play, but it looks like we just drew one, so he could be setting up for that next turn. See how this goes, but De-Evolution Beam is able to de-evolve an opponent's Pokemon of your choice. Doesn't necessarily have to be the active Pokemon, and that Pokemon the evolved form of the Pokemon goes back to the defending player's hand. So it's a good attack with Aerodactyl in play. Aerodactyl disabling evolution cards from being played. Water Energy comes down onto the Lugia, and switching out the Cleffa into the Mewtwo. Mewtwo taking 10 off of the spikes and rolling for Healing Field. And we're going for the Energy Absorption. Gonna take 2 energy cards out of the discard pile and attach them to Mewtwo here. So grab 2 Rainbow Energies. Common rules question that comes up, just the short answer is that Rainbow Energy only deals 10 damage to the attached Pokemon if it's attached from hand. So in this case, we're attaching from the discard pile, and Mewtwo does not sustain any damage from that. A metal energy comes down and attaches to the benched Pineco. Looks like he's setting up for a Fortress, but probably doesn't have it in hand. I think it would have come down quicker if it was in hand. Item Finder. There was a Piloswine and a Town Volunteers. Grabbing the Gust of Wind. It was announced by the Iron Hogs player. You might not be able to hear it, but he's gusting out the Berried fossil and then using a Professor Elm. So shuffle away your hand, draw 7 cards. No more trainer cards can be played this turn. But this Fortress is going to make short work of this Berried fossil. Able to deal 30 damage out. Hit the Berried fossil, knock it out, and then Berried Wings player is going to have to send something else out. I think we'll see probably the Mewtwo because it's fully energized, not relying on anything in hand. There's an Igglybuff to the bench and another Pineco. Something noteworthy here is that the Igglybuff is able to use Pokemon Power Gaze to shut off cards like Aerodactyl. Yep, and the Fortress uses Rapid Spin, knocks out the Berried fossil, awarding the Iron Hogs player a prize and pushing up the Cleffa. Yep, Berried Wings player chooses Mewtwo as the new active, draws a card. Unfortunately locked out of using the Aerodactyl in hand here. We see a water energy come down, fully energizing up that Lugia. It's ready to use the Steam Blast. Attempting the Healing Field here. Yep, taking the 10 damage off the Mewtwo. There's a lot of thinking in this matchup. It's, you know, the slower decks tend to be a slower thought process, or at least it feels that way. Using Gust of Wind to bring up the Igglybuff. Looks like we're going to try and take it off the table. Planning, still betting on that Aerodactyl. We got a heads. Takes down the Igglybuff and grants a prize to the Berried Wings player. Iron Hogs player puts back up the Cleffa that is not energized. And it's back over to them. Looks like we've got something in mind. Goldberry attached to the Fortress there. Got a double colorless energy attaching to the Pineco over on the far side of the table. And we're bringing up the Cleffa with damage on it, trying to roll for Healing Field and missing. Next, a Pokemon Fan Club comes down. There's only one spot left on the bench, but Fan Club, not the worst here. It's still a valid card to be able to just pull out another threat. We got a Swinub on the Iron Hog side. Swinub able to go into Piloswine and be able to attack for some serious damage. The water type is the reason for it being there. It's water and able to cover the weakness of the Fortress. Now we got a Professor Elm coming down. Shuffling away the 7 cards in hand. Drawing a shuffling away the hand regardless of how many cards it is. Drawing a brand new 7 cards and unable to activate any more trainers for the rest of the turn. So we'll see what comes out of this. Maybe another Fortress. because we've already done the attach on this side. We have a full bench, and we're locked out of trainers. There we go. There's a Fortress coming down on the fully energized Pineco there, and this time with an actual metal energy, so it would stop some of the incoming damage. Sending out the Fortress here. Gonna rapid spin for 30, and forcing the Berried Wings player to choose a new active here. Swapping into the Crystal Lugia here. Opponent swapping into the Cleffa. Notably not able to use Psychic, but I don't know if it'll come up. Get a double colorless energy coming down onto the Arrow Wing Lugia. Attempting to roll for Healing Field here on the Lugia side. It's Tails, so the Lugia keeps the 10 damage that it has retained. Alright, we rolled for Steam Blast and also got Tails there. Unable to take the Cleffa off the table. Back over to the Iron Hogs player. Looks like we're planning something. We checked the discard pile. Checking the discard pile on both sides of the table. A water energy coming down on the Swinub. Not sure if the Swinub is going to come out in this matchup. We haven't seen the Ho-Oh come out of the Berried Wings deck. Looks like we shortcutted there. The sending out the damaged Cleffa, flipping for Healing Field, switching back to the other Cleffa, switching then into the Fortress. So that's what's going on there. We flipped for Healing Field and healed it. Fortress deals 30 with the Rapid Spin to the Lugia. Having the original 10 there, procs the Goldberry healing 40, and Berried Wings player sending up Mewtwo. Iron Hogs player considering which Pokemon to send into the active slot after that Rapid Spin. Looks like it's going to be this Cleffa here. Back over to Berried Wings player. We've got an Evolve into Aerodactyl, cutting off any further evolution, which would prevent a third Fortress from coming down and would also prevent the Piloswine from coming down. Rolling for Healing Field, we've got another Tails. The luck has got to turn around at some point. We've got a water energy coming down onto the Arrowwing Lugia. And we're going for Cyburn on the Mewtwo, or from the Mewtwo onto the Cleffa. We flipped heads, and we've got our second knockout on the Berried Wings side of the table. Prizes are even heading into this turn, and Iron Hogs player sends out the Cleffa, the other Cleffa. Sliding some cards down. And we've got a second water energy comes down onto the Swinub. Wondering if we're going to see a Rapid Spin here or if we're going to see an Eek. We've already used a considerable amount of Gust of Wind cards. I think we've seen two from the Iron Hogs player. Switching into Swinub here. Looks like we're going to try and flip for the status condition. I believe it's Paralysis on Freezing Wind. So it's 20 damage no matter what, and then we've got a heads for the Paralysis. So we're turning in the card sideways to indicate Paralysis here. Drawing a card, a little messy there. So paralysis would prevent the Mewtwo from being able to retreat, and also prevents it from being able to attack for a full turn. Does not, however, stop Healing Field. And we've got an item finder comes down, discarding a Pokemon Trader and an Ammonite from Neo Discovery. Digging through the discard pile. Looks like we're going to grab the Town Volunteers and activate it. So we're able to take up to 5 basic energy, basic Pokemon, or evolution cards and put them back into the deck. So we've got a Fire Energy, an Aerodactyl, a Cleffa, another Cleffa, and a second Aerodactyl. So shuffling those up and then shuffling them back into the deck. A lot of energy on the table right now on the Berried Wings player side and on the Iron Hogs player side. So it's possible that that Psychic attack could come into play here. Attempting the Healing Field, it looks like, off of the... No, and we've got another Tails for that Mewtwo. Attaching a Warp Energy onto the Mewtwo now. And because of the swap, the spikes will deal 20 damage to the Cleffa. Swapping into the Crystal Lugia. Crystal Lugia will come in and take 20. We have already flipped for Healing Field, though, so there's no shot at healing the 20 off of that. But we take the knockout with the Steam Blast, discarding the Warp Energy there. And Iron Hogs player switches into the Cleffa again.
We'll go metal here.
Metal Energy attaching to the Pineco. And Town Volunteers from the other side of the table now. It looks like it is Swinub, Piloswine, Igglybuff, and 2 Water Energy shuffling back into that deck. Now let's see if he's got any plans to deal with this Aerodactyl. Looks like swapping into the Fortress that has the Goldberry attached. Using Rapid Spin, dealing 30 to the Crystal Lugia. And Berried Wings player switching into the Neo Revelation Aero Wing Lugia. And Iron Hogs player switching to the other Fortress here. Notably with a Metal Energy attached. Attaching a Recycle Energy onto the Aero Wing Lugia, which fulfills the requirement in order to use the attack. We've got Aero Wing, no coin flip, just dealing a straight 30 damage. Attempting to roll for Healing Field, we've got Tails. So no healing for that Fortress. The damage sticking can make for some difficult decision making. Do we switch to the other Fortress? Do we just go ahead and use this Fortress? Switch and Eek. Maybe try and draw some of those Town Volunteers cards that we just shuffled back in. Either way, that Fortress is likely coming out of the active slot. Oh, we've got a Warp Energy to warp it on out of the active slot. And we're eking.
So those proc even on a warp, because it's not retreating.
on your opponent's turn, whenever a new Pokemon becomes active, that Pokemon takes 10.
Switching back over to the Berried Wings player. Looks like we've drawn a Ho-Oh and a Aerodactyl among some other cards. Attempting to Arrow Wing here. It is a heads. No need to try and double the damage there because Cleffa only has 30 HP. Swapping into the other Cleffa. Got an Igglybuff comes down on the Iron Hog side. That is able to deal with the Aerodactyl. Pokemon Trader trades away a Pineco from hand. And it looks like we're grabbing a third Fortress. Using Pokemon Power, Gaze on the Aerodactyl to shut it off, and then evolving into the Fortress here. Let's see, are we switching into an attacker, or are we going to try and eke and refill our hand? No, we're going with a Gust of Wind in order to bring up the Crystal Lugia. Rolls for Healing Field, this time it's heads. That Fortress there is back down to only 10 damage on it. Notable here, it will be able to knock out that Crystal Lugia and spin out into something else. Let's see what we're choosing here. Looks like we're going Fortress into other Metal Fortress.
I think since it wasn't switched,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep, back into the, let's see, we've got a new Fortress. No damage on it, but a Metal Energy, and switching into the Mewtwo with Cyburn here. Ho-Oh comes down onto the bench, and we're attaching a Fire Energy to it, getting ready for a large Rainbow Burn. Alright, we've got a Computer Search comes down, discarding Aerodactyl and Pokemon Trader. Checking the deck, see what we get. Oh, we didn't get to see the card, unfortunately. Maybe it'll show when he picks the hand back up. Looks like it was a Psychic Energy. We're flipping for Healing Field, and we get a heads. So Mewtwo down to only 30 damage counters. Cyburn on the Fortress there. And it looks like this Mewtwo will survive a hit from this Fortress, thanks to Healing Field. Computer Search, discarding Water Energy and Swinub. Iron Hogs player checking their deck. See what they can come back with. No real reason to continue to use Igglybuff here. Found something. We'll see if they go and use it right away, or if we're going to wait on it. Rolling for Healing Field, we get heads. Back to 10 damage counters on that fortress. Or 10 damage, rather. Got an energy removal. Unclear if that's what was searched for.
There's a couple of targets, yeah. So.
Hey, you could hit the recycle. Hey.
Yeah. It's between the fire energy and the DCE. That's a Goldberry on Lugia?
Yeah.
Yeah, the DCE.
Looks like that
Can I get a DCE?
is hitting the double colorless energy. Makes it hard for the Lugia to be able to spin in and attack next turn.
2.
Or rather, decreases the chances. That is only the second double colorless energy that has hit the discard pile on the Berried Wings side. Now we've got a Goldberry coming down onto the second fortress. So two Goldberries on 2 fortress, dealing 30 with the rapid spin and forcing a new active, choosing the Lugia, Arrowwing Lugia here.
If only they took the damage when spinned in. Wouldn't that be nice?
Be a little too good.
And we already have the DCE, so we're attaching that to the Arrowwing Lugia.
I will try to arrow wing for the full amount.
Attempting to Arrowwing for the full 80 here. Flipping heads and knocking out the fortress.
This is the strongest Lugia that ever existed. Specifically against you.
It constantly fucking poses me. It's
I'm
so
sorry.
annoying.
Sorry, homie.
Back to the Cleffa on the Iron Hogs side. Iron Hogs player still maintaining 2 fortress with Goldberries attached. Those are going to be a little tougher to take out. Swapping into the fortress with 10 damage on it and missing the healing field flip. Looks like only 3 cards in hand on that side of the table. Checking the discard pile.
Yep.
I just barely got there.
Yeah.
Like, both had one price.
It's a fun deck, though, right?
Yeah.
You'll be fine for the time it takes.
Doing a huge think here. Again, we've got the fully energized Lugia against the fully energized Fortress. Both Pokemon holding Goldberries.
I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do for your side of things.
Probably both Dactyl and Lugia.
Yeah, probably Crystal Lugia, just because. Well, no, I'll just do the Sycamore Lugia. Who am I kidding?
It's almost.
Ho-Oh sitting still with only 1 fire energy still attached. And looks like the Iron Hogs player is grabbing the energy removal again off of the item finder. Just announcing it, not showing it, to put the 3rd double colorless energy into the discard pile.
Spin 30.
Going for a rapid spin here on the Fortress, dealing 30 to Lugia and changing into the Mewtwo. I think the goal here is just to make it unattractive to swap into a baby. It's like obviously the Mewtwo is ready to be knocked out even on a flip heads to the healing field, but the Mewtwo would not have to flip heads to attack a Fortress, and would be able to stick, in this case, 40 damage, which would pop the Goldberry. Psychic Energy comes down onto the Ho-Oh, so we're halfway there with energizing the Rainbow Burn.
Go flip for the field.
Flipping for Healing Field anyway, and it's Tails. Doesn't really matter. But we're at 1 prize to 3 prizes, so sacrificing the Mewtwo here isn't the worst. So Cyburn, dealing 40 to the Fortress, and getting rid of the Goldberry. Just 1 card in hand on the Iron Hog player's side. Rapid Spin to knock out the Mewtwo, and see what we... Switching into the Fortress on the Iron Hog side, switching into the Cleffa on the Berried Wings side. And it looks like we're staring at another Fire and another Psychic Energy in hand. So we go with the Rainbow on the Rainbow Burn Ho-Oh here, dealing 10 damage to the Ho-Oh. Attempting to Healing Field the Cleffa, flipping Tails. Using Eek, shuffle the hand in and draw 7. Making it a little tough for the Iron Hogs player to just go ahead and knock out the Cleffa, because you do have to flip heads here. Got another Metal Energy coming down. Metal Energy this time on the Fortress that did not already have a Metal Energy. So attempting to spin, and it rolls heads. So it knocks out the Cleffa. The Recycle Energy goes back to hand, and spinning into the Fortress that now has a Metal Energy on it. Swapping into Ho-Oh on that side of the table. Flipping for Healing Field here. And it's heads, so the Ho-Oh is healed. And attaching water for the 4th energy type. The Ho-Oh will be able to swing for 70 damage here. And we've got finally, the Underground Lake Stadium, which is able to pull Kabuto cards or Ammonite cards from the discard pile back onto the bench in order to treat them as a basic Pokemon. Both players can do it, but not too many other players are running Ammonite or Kabuto cards.
Okay.
And the Clairvoyance Fossil Ammonite comes down, forcing the Iron Hogs player to play with their hand revealed.
Not that it matters in this deck.
It's the new wording though, because before it was like, ooh, here's every special condition ever. Yeah, I will Rainbow Burn first.
Rainbow Burn from the Ho-Oh for 70 down to 60 because of the Metal Energy. Unfortunate that the Ho-Oh is not a Fire type, yet remains weak to Water.
Isn't it 60 down to 50?
No.
30, 40, 50, 60, 70. Rainbow counts. Rainbow just counts as 1.
Yeah, it's type of basic.
Oh, okay.
So Iron Hogs player drew a Water Energy. Doing some thinking here. No Goldberry on that Fortress.
Not that it matters here. I could Igglybuff the Ammonite if I had like a draw thing or a comp search.
Players discussing a funny interaction here. You could Igglybuff on the Ammonite to disable the Clairvoyance for a limited time. Just hide the hand, just in case.
It's a little bit. That's your magic brains moment for me.
We got a rapid spin coming from this Fortress here, 30 damage onto the Ho-Oh, and we have a swap into Lugia. Unknown what the Iron Hogs player is going to swap into here. Putting the Igglybuff into the active slot. Attaching the DCE onto the Lugia, and big moment here. And flipping tails. Igglybuff survives. So the healing field is gone. That's big because now the metal Pokemon are unable to... Yeah, it looks like we're reversing a little bit. We're going to put the Ammonite onto the bench. A little overconfident there with the baby flip. But in any case, the healing field going away makes it harder to, makes it easier to knock out the metal Pokemon because of their increased defensive capabilities having these metal energies attached. So back to the Iron Hogs player, we've got 2 double colorless energy in hand. Still a Fortress and a Cleffa. Not really a great reason to put either of those cards down. No need to put any energy in. Swapping out the Igglybuff. And moving into the Fortress that has higher damage on it. Using Rapid Spin, dealing 30, putting it up to 60. Gold Berry, healing it down to 20. And we have to switch here. And we put up the Ho-Oh.
Not much, are you? Pretty good. You hanging out for a little bit?
Iron Hogs player decides to swap into the Fortress that has 10 damage on it. Also, notably, the Metal Energy and the Gold Berry. It looks like, yeah, Ho-Oh would not be able to knock out this Fortress here. 70 damage would hit down to 60, which would therefore only put, it would leave the Fortress with 20 HP, and then the Gold Berry would heal it down to, so it would have 60 HP remaining after the Gold Berry.
No, I spun into Ho-Oh. Or, I had this.
Okay.
I spun.
No, it's tripping me up because you have 2 Fortress. Okay.
You're good. I just put up the other Fortress.
I actually have 4 of them, so I only need 3 at the deck.
I think a noteworthy thing here is that there's no additional energy types available for the Ho-Oh in this deck. Unless there was another Rainbow Energy, but I think they're all in the discard pile at this point.
Kills an energy from everyone. My gut's telling me that Dark Vaporeon might just be better. Kills an energy guaranteed, but only from the active.
It's like the stinky thing is, I think I have to Rainbow Burn in here, and it would be for 60. So it's like
I'm happy to look at your trade.
not doing anything.
Did one for it. I've been looking for a couple more copies of this guy.
I can make it.
The only tempting thing here would be to retreat the Ho-Oh, to put up the Lugia, to attempt to flip for the Arrow Wing. For the 80 damage, that would be down to 70 because of the metal energy. However, that's like really, really bad. And, I mean, like, it does present a way to win when you only have 1 card left in your deck, but I don't know. We'll see what we go with here. a Psychic Energy onto the Mew.
Such a bummer. I love it.
Must have another Psychic in hand. Maybe he's trying to threaten the de-evolution beam and make it
But yeah, I mean, I'm totally willing to trade.
not attractive to send out the other Fortress. I don't know.
I'm marking damage. We'll do the 60 here.
Sure.
We're dealing 60 with Rainbow Burn here.
Down to 30.
Down to 30.
Use that.
Maybe we'll just pass.
Running a deck today.
Oh, that's right. I did the math wrong earlier, but yep. So 30 on the Fortress.
Yeah, next week I won't be here because we'll be actually sitting working with our mount. But the weekend after, I should.
Okay. Igglybuff Ammonite?
He's actually doing it. He's using Igglybuff Pokemon Power Gaze
You know, that's funny.
to disable the Ammonite temporarily.
7, you said?
Max's mini deck is
Shuffling the hand into the deck, drawing 7 because the Berried Wings player has 7 cards in hand.
Yeah, a little bit.
the best grass option that I found for just a one drop in that deck. How much did these run?
A possibility.
And a first Eddie of Bullberry is what, like $4?
I don't know if we found anything here because I feel like it would have come down pretty quick if he found something relevant. But I don't think he's in a particularly bad spot. You know, we are down to the very last prize for both players. Got a Pokemon Trader shuffling away a Cleffa.
This is like the best we can do. So,
What do we find here?
I think the second Bullberry in this deck is going to help.
Finding a Pineco. All right.
Sabrina's Alakazam is great, but it's only 80 HP.
I failed to find on Trader?
120 HP is very nice.
Alright, I'll lie and fail to find.
All right. So the Iron Hogs player is opting to fail to find off of the Pokemon Trader,
Solitary.
I don't think it matters too much.
simply putting extra cards back into the deck. Maybe there's a small chance that the Berried Wings player is able to rip a item finder and grab the Town Volunteers again.
As soon as that first Bullberry dropped off, I felt
I
very.
think I have to stall.
Seems unlikely.
80 is not feeling great here. I really love shoehorning Shawnee.
Not that it matters, but
Second Metal Energy comes down onto that Fortress.
if you left Healing Field out, I'd be in the lead for sure. I think I got any heads.
Looks like we might be reconsidering the Metal Energy here.
See, now we got these cool dudes.
Yeah, good little fellas. Do I want to put this metal here? I don't think it makes a difference. I'd have to
Unsure where to place the Metal Energy. It's possible that it's just like not ideal to put down the Healing Field at all in a matchup like this with Steel type Pokemon. Maybe just rely on the berries exclusively. Looks like second Metal Energy goes on to the other Fortress instead.
And I want to get them down, so I'd rather get 4 new cards.
30 damage onto the Ho-Oh. With Rapid Spin, Ho-Oh forced to retreat, and Lugia coming out. Facing the same Igglybuff.
This one's for all the marbles.
Can he defeat this Igglybuff this time?
Sorry, yeah. Warp water.
Berried Wings player draws the last card in the deck,
Sabrina's ESP is really necessary, but
attaching the second Psychic Energy to Mew on the bench. It looks like we're not going to see a item finder here. No item finder into Town Volunteers to save the game.
Devo Beam would cost you the game.
or even on stealing Sabrina's Kadabra.
Both hands have enough energy to.
Oh, I was making it unattractive with what that would back out.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that would have gotten a knockout,
Copy
huh?
of it in here at least.
Without even requiring damage.
Yep.
Yep, Arrowwing.
Yeah,
Just
it looks like
regular
we're
Arrowwing.
flipping for Arrowwing here.
This is specifically a baby
And
flip
this
guy. I like that to be
takes the game if heads, and it's tails.
You got it.
So the game goes to the Iron Hogs player due to deck out. He was able to better stall out the stall deck that is the Aerodactyl Turbo Berried Wings deck. Very good game, very close, very long. It is one of the longest WotC-20 games we've ever seen on the channel. But lots of really cool cards here, lots of really awesome WotC-20 exclusive strategies on display here today. And we're looking forward to seeing some more games. And yeah, thanks for watching. We'll catch you next time.